Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company and a fine line of products. They have great products like their sour mash bourbons, their whiskeys, new hardtop rye whiskey, and toasted coconut rum. Make sure you stop by and pick up the products no matter where you are. And if they don't have it, make sure you ask for the Hard Truth from Hard Truth Distilling. Appreciate you and appreciate every one of you for being along with us on this beautiful, cool, crisp Wednesday. Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline on the YouTube page, and you can follow us there as well, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. In addition to all of our great listeners on our affiliates around the state, ESPN 97.7, The Ref, always the right call down in Evansville. 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM, the voice of the region, WJOB, up in Hammond and Chicago, and 1380 The Fan, Fort Wayne's only sports station. Make sure you keep it tuned right here to these stations after we're done, because there's lots more great content coming to you. Loaded show today. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette will join us. Kyle Neddenripp from the Indy Star, and Rick Bozich as well. We've got lots of football still to talk, man. As the AP Top 25 has come out, the first one that's really been shuffled up by games of this year, and there was some shuffling. The Fever secure their first playoff spot since this is the first time in 6 years, 2016, and they did it while not even playing a game. But they have a winning record right now at 17-16, and that is the first winning record since 2019. So for a squad that started out 1-7, 1-8, pretty good turnaround for them. So great for them. Hello to everybody that's hitting us up. I hope you guys are doing well. Jack, how are you, sir? Brian down in Ellington, Florida, where I know that they have a Hard Truth available because I've seen it, baby. And as a matter of fact, anytime that we do greatly appreciate you guys supporting our sponsors, but places like the Hard Truth, where the folks that listen all over the country to us can find those products. When you go in and you purchase one of those, take a screenshot of it and send it to me in some form. So we want to collect that and put it together. And everybody that does that, I'm going to put you into a bowl basically and draw out something, and we'll give some prizes away. I've still got this incredible Adidas leather backpack to give away. There's a Reebok hooded jacket that's embroidered. Still have to give away, and plenty of pullovers that'll be coming up. Cheryl Sizemore, appreciate you being on with us as always as well. Man, it's been I always love short weeks, and this is going to be a short week because of the Labor Day holiday, so that's always a blast. The only thing I don't like is it's a short week for games with Indiana, as they will play on a Friday night, which sucks to no end. And finding out yesterday from Travis Miller that Purdue has 2 Friday night games, man, that really, that blows, to be honest with you. But I'm old schooler, man. I like to leave that for the high schools, and which I know that the individual teams, they do as well. They don't like that. No one likes that, but it is what it is. The AP Top 25 poll out. And course, it was out a couple of days ago. But there were multiple changes, and I'm trying to get back to that, as a matter of fact, to where I had that thing pulled up, because some of the, here we go. Not the top didn't change much, of course. Georgia wins, so they stay number 1. Ohio State wins big. They remain number 2. Texas moved up a spot with they had a big win, 52-0 over Colorado State. That will be Purdue's opponent in 2 weeks. No, I'm sorry. That's Oregon State. My apologies. Alabama moved up a spot with their 63-0 demolishing of Western Kentucky. Notre Dame moves up 2 spots, mainly because there was not much room with their impressive 23-13 win over Texas A&M. Ole Miss stayed the same. Oregon dropped 4 spots to number 7 after a ho-hum 24-14 win over Idaho. And because of that, let's see, Penn State stayed the same. I'm looking at Michigan dropped only 1 spot with a pedestrian 30-10 win over Fresno State. Miami, a big jump, 7 spots upwards with their dismantling in the swamp of Florida, 41-17. USC, though, the biggest jump in the AP top 25 as they moved 10 spots to the north and are now at number 13 after a very impressive 27-20 win, maybe the best win of the weekend, in my opinion. And the fact that USC started so low, they moved 10 spots and they're still not even in the top 10. So this is why even the AP poll should wait until after at least week 1 to put out a poll. I mean, a poll before anything has happened, especially now, is absolutely, utterly ridiculous. You can guess, of course, at some of the top teams because they usually are going to be that. And teams like, we're talking about Georgia and Oregon or Ohio State and Alabama, teams like that. But there are too many teams that they took a total guess at. Florida State is the first one. Why did they think that they were going to be so great when there was absolutely nothing proven? And if I'm correct, the last time we saw them at the end of last season, they were getting just beaten like a dog. So, but oh well. I digress. Let's see. Perfect. Let's ask him. We'll ask, apparently, Dylan. Well, let it go. Andy says, ask Dylan why he voted Notre Dame 8th, had a big road win over a top 20 team. Well, I'll tell you that. But just because in the ranking, I just talked about, rankings to me in going into week 1 are very wishy-washy. There's nothing to base them on. What the hell? Why was Florida State a top 10 team? I'd like to know that. I questioned that before they got beat. They hadn't shown anything. All that they had shown is without their starting quarterback from a year ago, they didn't have much. And we saw that. We've seen that. They've lost 2 games in the ACC, no less. So I don't think that there should be a poll after week 1. USC, let me tell you, they look much better. They were 24th? Well, they just beat LSU, who is going to be a problem for teams this year. USC looked damn good. And to only be 13th now, that's funny because they probably should have been 13th before and then moved way up. But that's how it is. It's how it was. It's how it will be. So we're just going to have fun looking later on for those 12 spots to get filled. Looking forward to today's guest, Dylan Sinn, Kyle Ned, Rick Bozich, as I said. As you see, Skylar, the producer, doing a great job with getting our information up on the bottom of the rankings. down there, your team rankings as well. And man, the weather is awesome. Anybody going to LA? I know it's a little soon. That's not till next week. But this game is going to come and go fast because it's a Friday night game for the Hoosiers as they'll take on Western Illinois this week. Looking forward to that. Great time this past weekend for Indiana as well. They had a basketball reunion. Got to see a couple of the guys. I didn't get to see everybody, but I saw that a lot of guys were in. Wished I could have ran into them all. AJ, I'm trying to think who all that I saw was here and didn't get to see, but I got to see Charlie and meet Five Lefts. Like I said, we talked about that yesterday. Got to see Michael Lewis again, which was awesome. And spend a little time over at Yonkos, which is always a good time. So looking forward to that as well. What are your thoughts heading into week 2 of college football? We'll see. How did see? Michael's asking Brian, does he think that Boston could win the ACC? I guess Boston College, as you talk about. Man, anybody can win the ACC, to be honest with you. But right now, Miami's looking pretty strong. So, talking about, and he also talks about that extra day of rest during a long travel week doesn't hurt any, I guess. No. That is going to be one of the few things that Indiana has going for them because UCLA is off. They have 2 weeks off. They don't have a game this week. So that is one thing that Indiana is going to be facing is a team that has 2 weeks to prepare and get better. Games usually do that for you as well, but it's going to be very interesting. Very interesting as I still think that while there is a path to 6-0 for Indiana, that Maryland game I still think is going to be the toughest one now. And if Indiana is 5-1 after their first 6 games, I'm pretty sure that no one's going to be complaining. That would leave them 1 game shy of bowl eligibility with 6 games remaining, 4 of which would be at home. 3 of those more than winnable. And I'll tell you, the road game at Michigan State, it's a winnable game, but don't ever forget how tough road games are in the Big Ten. I can tell you right now. I remember going up there when Michael Penix tied the Big Ten record of 20 consecutive pass completions, and they just made a couple of two mistakes. They caught a punt too deep in their own territory, didn't get out of there, a bad punt, and all of a sudden they let Michigan State score at the end of that half. And that's all it took. But how's everybody doing? Welcome aboard. Lots to talk about today. Jalen Harrelson was in last week. Not a lot to talk about there. I mean, guess what? The visit went great. That's how that happens. It was great that it was at a time where all the players were in. Talked to Charlie Miller a little bit about it, and he said it's hard for him to get a gauge on it. He goes, there's just all this pomp and circumstance stuff that goes on that didn't used to go on back in his day. So he said the guy he walk around with the uniform on, which was cool and all that. So I'm sure it was a cool situation for him and very unique because it won't be like any of the other visits he goes on. I doubt that any of the other programs are going to happen to be having a basketball reunion at that time, having all greats in from multiple decades. So I'm sure that was a very fortuitous time to do that. And as we go along, we're a couple of weeks away from Sicily and Harold and Mullins coming in for a visit. That will happen on the weekend of the 20th of this beautiful September. When September ends. So, yeah. Mentioned the Fever securing their playoff spot. How about that? That's a pretty good job. I mean, everybody was moaning and complaining about Christy Sides, and that kind of gets forgotten all of a sudden. The Final Four is returning to Atlanta after the pandemic nixed the city's previous bid 4 years ago. The NCAA announced today that Atlanta will be the site of the 2031 Final Four. Its first time hosting since 2013. That was the site that Indiana last played in a Final Four in Atlanta, by the way. Atlanta was slated to host the 2020 Final Four, but COVID-19 pandemic led to the cancellation early in that year of all major sports, including March Madness, 2 weeks before the tournament was set to start. The 2025 Final Four will be back in San Antonio, followed by Indy in 2026 and 2029. Detroit in 2027. That's kind of an odd spot. Las Vegas in 2028 and North Texas in 2030. And North Texas, I assume, is going to be the Dallas, the Metroplex area north of that, I'm going to assume. We've got plenty coming up. On the program today, our good friend Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star, and Rick Bozich will join us as well. Looking forward to it. Big thanks to the great folks at Hard Truth, as well as Andy Moore, for bringing you this great program. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this. By the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth. In the market for a new or used vehicle? Well, nobody beats the prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com.
Looking for someone to cater your next corporate event, family reunion, or tailgate? To some, a garnish may be nothing more than just a decoration put last on a plate. But in Bloomington, catering starts with Garnish Catering. Serving all of Bloomington and surrounding areas, Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of WOW Food Group.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Ravesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details.
Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off your first order. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this beautiful Wednesday. Glad to have you along for the right. Our good friend Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette joins us. How's it going, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Jim.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Great opening weekend. Well, I call it the opening weekend of college football, week one. All the area teams were in action, whether you're talking Notre Dame, Purdue, Indiana, down there in Louisville as well. But everyone got done, it seems, what they needed to get done, including Indiana, which probably not the most infectious way. But Notre Dame, we'll start with them. I thought that they were overranked to start with, but that was a big win for them, but especially in the fact that they don't really have what you would call a quote unquote tough schedule the rest of the way. As a matter of fact, I don't think they play another tough game until the end of the season when they'll take on the USC Trojans.
No, absolutely. I mean, there were supposed to be 3 really tough games on the schedule for Notre Dame this year. It was supposed to be Texas A&M, Florida State, and USC, and it turns out the Florida State is just not very good right now. And so that eliminates that. And I'm sure as the season goes on, I'm sure at least one of the other teams on the schedule will turn out to be pretty good. That's just kind of how these things usually work. But yeah, right now the game that's circled is USC, and probably the way it works right now is that Notre Dame can afford to drop a game and still make the playoff, right? Like that's kind of how a 12-team playoff is probably going to work for Notre Dame. Now it would be 12-0 and 11-1, and that's the difference probably between hosting and playing on the road in the playoff for the Irish. But it is still one of those things where they have a little bit of margin for error. They didn't use it in week one, and that's great because that was one of their toughest tests this season. Texas A&M, I continue to believe, is a good team that will win many, many games this year. Their quarterback situation is a little bit rough right now. I was not impressed with Connor Wegman as I thought I would be. But Notre Dame's biggest question going into the season was, can the offensive line figure things out with so many new pieces? And in that game, they did. The offensive line was not great, but it was good enough at the end, especially. They opened some nice holes for that 85-yard scoring drive in the fourth quarter against the defensive front that everyone agrees is pretty good. That also includes Nick Scorton, the Big Ten sack leader last year. So, yeah, it was a good opening week victory for Notre Dame, and they don't have another really tough opponent. Again, like you said, until USC, at least on paper, there are some good teams in there. Louisville seems like it could be a good team. Georgia Tech seems like it could be a good team. There are other good teams in there, but another elite team is not on the schedule until you face USC at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Purdue with a win the way it should have been, as they took on a much overmatched Indiana State team, and they get a huge win. Hudson Card looked good for them. I did not see any of that game and have not watched a lot, so I don't know how as a team that they performed, but just by looking at the score, it looked like it was a good game for the Boilers.
No, you could only play the team in front of you, right? And IU learned that on Saturday as well. But Purdue did exactly what they needed to do against Indiana State, which is not very good. You're right. Purdue should have won the game like they did. And that's importantly, after the game, Ryan Walters was kind of asked about like what he saw from his team. He's like, I didn't really see a whole lot. We did what we were supposed to do. We were expected to do this. They won 49-0. They outgained them, I think, 583 to 154. It was about as comprehensive of a beatdown as you can get. There were some times where their defense was a little bit out of position, which is going to be something they need to clean up. It was an issue last year. But other than that, the offense was humming. It was really, really good. And they have some weapons. That was the question coming into the season was, without Deion Burks, who transferred to Oklahoma at the wide receiver, their most explosive player, could they generate explosive offense? And in this game, they were able to. Their junior college transfer wide receiver, Leland Smith, made some plays. Jamal Edrin, the guy that they got from Florida Atlantic last year, who tore his ACL and missed the entire 2023 season, he made some plays. He has the look of a really good receiver. Max Clare, the tight end, who they think is kind of next in line as the next great Purdue tight end, he made some plays. Hudson Card, as you said, was almost perfect, 24 of 25, tied the FBS completion percentage record for minimum 20 passes. So just really, really good performance overall from Purdue. Obviously, things get much more difficult for them. The next time they play will be against Notre Dame. in West Lafayette. I tend to believe that game is going to be closer than people have kind of marked down. I think that Purdue is a better than people have marked down, but and they'll be coming off a bye as well. So that's something to note, is that game is not this week. Next week, Purdue has a very early bye week, so they will not play this week.
Yeah, and so that's going to be helpful. It's kind of like Indiana taking on UCLA with their first big game coming up, but they've got a game in between. UCLA does not. They're on a 2-week hiatus as they prepare for Indiana. So it'll be interesting to see how both of those games go with teams involved in that scenario having a bye. And that's an early time to have a bye, man. Plus, I learned yesterday Purdue has 2 Friday night games this year.
Yes.
Not one. Indiana has one this Friday, which sucks, but Purdue has not one, but 2.
Yeah, very odd way the schedule worked out for Purdue. But yeah, those Friday games are going to be more common going forward. The Big Ten is really trying to make Friday kind of its night. Like the Big Ten they're putting some good games there. I mean, Purdue-Oregon is not a great game, but it is one of the biggest games on Purdue's schedule. And they're not just putting the dregs of the league on Fridays anymore. They're really trying to. That is a strategic push they're making is with Fox is trying to put good games on Fridays to kind of own that night. I think the decision was, if we're going to play games on those days, let's not put the worst games on those days. Let's try to own it, kind of like the NFL owns Monday night, that kind of thing. And obviously it is tough. We heard Tom Allen complain about it when he was IU's coach. It's tough for the high schools, right? They don't get to see that they don't get to have kids visit and all that. But if you're going to do it, they're going to try to make it good. So.
What were your overall impressions of week 1 for the teams' performances? We'll save Indiana, Purdue, and for the next segment. But Notre Dame, obviously, they got done what they needed to get done because they have put themselves in a top 10 position now that they're probably not going to relinquish because of that schedule for a long time, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not sure where Notre Dame truly is. I'm Texas A&M is not. I don't know that they're as formidable as we thought that they could be. This is in year 1 of Jimbo Fisher being gone. So I don't know what the expectations really were for Texas A&M to begin with.
Yeah, I think again, Texas A&M. What we know about Texas A&M is that they have a good defense and a very good defensive front. And Notre Dame's whole thing was we have 3 first-time starters on the offensive line. That was the question for Notre Dame, was can the offensive line be anywhere close to the standard that Notre Dame has set in recent years, having one of the best offensive lines in the country? That's kind of been a staple for them. And it seems like they don't have a perfect offensive line, but they have one that's good enough to hold up against some pretty good teams. And so that was what we learned in that game. I do think that Texas A&M is going to be pretty good this year. I think the offense will figure it out. I still am a Connor Wegman believer. I just think that Notre Dame was very good defensively in that game. And so Texas A&M is one of those things where it's the first year after Jimbo Fisher, but Mike Elko, their new coach, went 9-4 in his first year at Duke. He is not a guy who is accustomed to having long ramp-up periods, kind of like a Curt Cignetti situation. So I do think that A&M will be good. I think that win will look better as the season goes on. And it's good that Notre Dame got them early because that team is going to get better as the season goes on. So yeah, Notre Dame, it's one of those years where the ACC kind of ish schedule that they have did not really yield a whole lot of tough games on paper right now. Obviously, again, Georgia Tech moved into the rankings this week. I don't know how long they'll stay there. We'll see. But usually what happens is that a couple of teams are better than you end up thinking, right? I think Louisville might be better than people think. They just beat up on Austin Peay. I think it was 70-0. The Georgia Tech might end up being pretty good. I liked them last year. There are teams in the schedule that could be pretty good for Notre Dame that will test them along the way. And then you get USC at the end of the year. So yeah, we won't learn a ton about them unless some team really turns out to be much better than we think. But they've taken care of business in week 1. I think they will continue to take care of business and will have to be mentally focused in order to do so.
Absolutely. And looking forward to seeing how those games turn out because I mentioned this earlier, which while the college football selection committee, they don't start voting until 7-8 weeks into the season. I forget. It'll be sometime in October.
I think it's 8 weeks. 8 weeks, yeah.
Perfect, because the preseason polls now have never been more useless. Never been more useless than they are today, because there is no way on God's green earth anybody knows what these teams are going to be like now, because they are never the same. So anything is just a guess. The sheer fact that Florida State was listed as a top 10 team, and they're not close. They got beat by not one, but two mid-level ACC teams. What does that put Florida State? What is that? Although
I know, I mean,
the poll doesn't go into it as much, I still hate it because Notre Dame and USC, two teams that I think are very different. I think USC looked way better than Notre Dame did because they were playing a tougher opponent, and they moved 10 spots, but they're still sitting outside of the top 10. Just wait. But AP is, I guess it's the only way to get it's a way of getting some excitement and some notoriety still, even though that their poll is not playing into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a tradition thing, right? Like the AP poll at one point was a component of the rank. At one point, the AP poll was the rankings, and then for a while there with the BCS, it was a component of the rankings, and so it's a tradition thing, right? And it's a snapshot to see just how people perceive these teams as the season goes on, which I think is always interesting. I don't mind USC being a little bit outside the top 10. I understand they did have a very good win. I think that at this point in the season, your preseason expectations are still baked in a little bit, unless there's some kind of dramatic reversal, kind of like Florida State, right? Like, obviously they went from number 10 to out of the rankings entirely, which I think is fair. I think they did not look very good in either of those games. They got run all over, despite the fact that people thought going out of the offseason that they had done some work to kind of replace some of the pieces they lost on the defensive line, which apparently they didn't do it. They didn't do a good enough job. They got some guys in the portal they thought would be effective. They are not. And two straight teams that we didn't think were going to have great rushing attacks have run all over them. So, and of course, the quarterback is not quite as good as they thought. The receivers are not as good as they thought. It's been kind of a team-wide disappointment for Florida State so far. With USC, I do think that they beat LSU. That was it was a good performance. I think that Miller Moss had a good game. That's the new quarterback for them. Obviously, they have some weapons at receiver. I'm going to hold judgment on whether the defense is actually fixed or not. That was the big problem for them the last 2 years. The defense just couldn't stop anybody. I thought they played better against LSU. I think I'm not sure how good LSU's offense is yet. We'll see. So I don't mind waiting and seeing on USC. They're going to get more opportunities like Notre Dame to kind of showcase how real they are. I don't think Notre Dame and USC are going into that game 11-0 apiece. I think they're going to lose somewhere along the way. USC obviously has to go through the Big Ten schedule, which has some very good teams on it, including Michigan and a couple others. So we'll see about USC. I do think that there will be opportunities for them to really showcase who they are and how good their defense has really become as the season goes on. And I'm fascinated to see that play out as well, because for 2 years, they basically didn't take defense seriously. It was kind of like, we have Caleb Williams. Why should we care about stopping anybody? And now they don't have Caleb Williams anymore. And they stopped LSU pretty well. It wasn't perfect. Garrett Nussmeier had a decent game for LSU, the quarterback, but I'm interested to see how that plays out going forward, because interestingly, USC stole UCLA's defensive coordinator, kind of a crosstown rivalry. Just, hey, we want your defensive coordinator, come on over and play for us. And that seems to have paid dividends already. So interested to see how that plays out.
We've got Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us. More coming up. We'll talk Indiana and Purdue when we come back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio is brought to you by the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at indyhomepros.com. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser.
Looking for someone to cater your next corporate event, family reunion, or tailgate? To some, a garnish may be nothing more than just a decoration put last on a plate. But in Bloomington, catering starts with Garnish Catering. Serving all of Bloomington and surrounding areas, Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of WOW Food Group.
In the market for a new or used vehicle? Well, nobody beats the prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Hard Truth Distilling Company and Andy Moore Honda Bloomington.
Segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. Thank you so much. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us. Just something I was looking at just now, Dylan. ADs are making big-time money now. Tennessee just made Danny White the SEC's highest-paid AD at $2.75 million a year for an athletics director. I'm not saying they're worth it, not worth it, but wow. Everything is taking an unbelievable jump. I mean, not that ADs probably should not be, maybe they're worth more than any individual coach because they're over all of that, although they don't usually come close to making what a top coach makes. Pat Kraft, Penn State just made him a much wealthier man at $2.26 million per year. Pat Kraft, a name that should sound familiar to Indiana fans because he played football for Indiana. Boy, he was a name that was out there, and nothing against Indiana. Scott Dolson, I think he's doing a good job for Indiana, but it's kind of weird that they had that opportunity to do that, and how before Scott they went in different directions. It was, don't get me going down that road, but just something that caught my attention. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us, and Indiana and Purdue both having good weekends. I'd say Purdue had the better weekend, doing exactly what they should have done against a very much overmatched Indiana State team and getting a big win. Indiana did the same thing for the most part, but they had mistakes that they made on offense, mostly in the form of just self-inflicted penalties, some holding penalties, some illegal formation penalties, just dumb stuff, but the kind of stuff that stops drives. So Indiana would have put a lot more points on the board had it not been for that, in my opinion. But that stuff, they got to get cleaned up, because one of the things that Kurt Signetti has talked about is that JMU, they were one of the most least penalized teams in the country. And in this past game, they had 3 times as many pieces of yellow carpet that the opposing team did on the road. I mean, FIU only had 3 penalties in the entire game.
Yeah, no, and so many of the penalties were on offense. I think that was kind of a striking part of it, was that it was 9 penalties and 8 were on the offensive end or something like that. I think that was what it was. And it is one of those things where it did slow the Hoosiers down a little bit on offense. It stalled drives. There were holding penalties. Everyone saw Kurt Signetti's reaction to the one holding penalty toward the end of the first half. He was very unhappy. It was kind of funny. But no, it is one of those things where he is not used to his team committing penalties in that way. And I think it is something that will get fixed as the season goes on. It is a brand new offensive line. I understand that Mike Kadick and Carter Smith are back. That's great, but it is an offensive line that's going to take some time to gel, especially with Nick Kidwell out for the season. I think probably part of it is that the offensive line, the current configuration, is that the offensive line's current configuration is different. Kidwell was going to be the starter. He was out. Then you had to basically make a switch 10 days or so before the season. And there's going to be issues there, right? I do think that having another game this Friday will kind of help them iron out some of those issues before they go on the road to UCLA, which is obviously a very big game. And so I do think that is something to monitor, just the week to week improvement, because there are going to be some improvement. I do think that I like the offensive line play in general. If they weren't committing a penalty, they were usually doing a good job, right? There were holes in the run game. There were
they had 200, almost 250. It was 245 or whatever yards rushing.
Yeah,
I don't know when the last time it was Indiana had that many yards rushing, and I'm pretty confident I can say it did not occur in all 12 games last season. They barely crossed 100 yards last year.
Yeah, it has been a while, and even against Indiana State last year, when they played a team that really was struggling, they mostly threw the ball through the air, right? Like they were not running the ball that well. And
that's for a team that claimed to be a running team.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that was, and in addition to that, they had one of their running backs was not feeling particularly well. Kalon Black was held out a lot of the game for precautionary reasons. I think he'll get more carries as the season goes on. They're high on him as another JMU guy. So I thought that Justice Ellison was really good. I loved what I saw from Tyson Lawton, who was, I thought, really, really hard runner. Both of those guys, they just run through people. And then you get some of the lightning at the end. You get the thunder with them. You have the lightning at the end with Elijah Green just kind of bursting through a hole for a 51-yard touchdown at the end. Really nice. I do think that there's one thing that I would point out is that I think people were a little bit disappointed in kind of the margin of victory in this game. It was 31-7. I think people thought it could have been bigger, and it could have been. To be clear, it could have been.
It should have been, and it would have been had it not been for the offensive penalties. I have no doubt about that.
But just to put that in perspective, the IU had not beaten an FBS opponent by 24 points, any FBS opponent by 24 points since 2020. It did not happen in any of the last 3 years. They beat Western Kentucky by 2 and 3. They beat Akron by 2. They beat even Idaho a couple of years ago. Remember, they beat them by a couple touchdowns and were down 10-0 at halftime. So they had not beaten an FBS opponent badly in quite a while. It had been since 2020. So even this win that people are a little bit disappointed by is still higher than the standard that was set over the last 3 years. So I think that is encouraging because, as you said, there's more to go. The ceiling is higher, but it was a good first step, I think. And we did see some things that we would like to see, especially on defense. As much as the offense struggled at times, I did think the defense was very, very good, other than that one drive in the first half.
185 yards total offense allowed by FIU, by the Indiana defense for FIU's offense. that's outstanding no matter who you're talking about. I mean, they that one drive that in the back half, the end waning moments of the first half rather, they looked like they were on their heels for a minute, but they come back in the second half and just completely shut it down.
Yeah.
That's a good sign, and coming out of the game healthy, a very good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you said 185 yards, which is correct. 75 of those yards were on that one drive in the first half. So like they were just a little bit on their heels. Like you said, Florida International went with some tempo. They kind of sped up the play calling, and Indiana was just a little bit on its heels, as you said. I think they figured that out at halftime. They adjusted, and it just wasn't a problem anymore. I think that speaks to this coaching staff being able to make in-game adjustments, figure out what's going on, and stop it. I thought that was really, really impressive. I'll tell you what, I am really impressed by those linebackers. Aiden Fisher, especially, that guy is shot out of a cannon when he is going toward the ball. It is really, really good. And Jalen Walker as well, I was really impressed by. So the linebacking core for Indiana, I know that the linebackers were the staple of the Tom Allen era. They had some really, really good ones. Aaron Casey last year was absolutely fantastic. But those guys, Aiden Fisher and Jalen Walker, if those are your top two, that is a really good group. I'm excited to see them kind of grow as the season goes on. I think those guys are just really, really good and fun to watch. So it's hard to make being linebacker fun to watch, and they do. And that's really fun.
Oh, he was everywhere. Aiden
Yes.
Fisher, you heard his name often, and I expect that to continue, which that's of great importance for Indiana, because I didn't know what that core was going to be like.
Yep.
And that's one of the transfers, as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
for Indiana as well. So again, it shows you how well Indiana has adjusted with the transfers, everyone kept asking, well, how are these guys going to play? I'm like, dude, trust me. They were good last year. They're going to be as good, if not better, this year. So I was not worried about those guys. Everybody kept acting like they're going up to the NFL. I'm like, man, they're not taking that kind of a jump. Yes, I know it's the Big Ten, and yes, there will be differences. But at the end of the day, I think these guys are all going to be up to the task.
Yeah, I mean, and that's IU fans should know that guys from that conference, the Sun Belt, can play in the Big Ten. We saw last year when IU played Louisville, my man Jamari Thrash. He played for Louisville last year. Previously, he played for Georgia State, which is in JMU's conference. He just torched IU up and down the field for 4 quarters. People should remember that was a Sun Belt guy doing that. So yeah, there have been Sun Belt guys that have come up and really made an impact. I mean, Indiana had Andre Carter last year from Western Michigan. He was terrific. That's the same conference that CJ West is coming from, right? So there are guys that it's pretty obvious can make the jump. And so IU's coaching staff has done a pretty good job, I think, of identifying those guys. I still think one thing with the offense that I wanted to see more of Elijah Surratt. That guy, people were really high on him coming out of JMU. They kind of kept him in the garage, so to speak, in week one.
Fire passing game,
yes.
The deep threat passing game in
yes.
the garage, as you say, and I agree with that. Weren't many, if any, shots downfield at all of substance, but I think that's probably with purpose. That might change this week because we saw a couple of trick plays, which you normally don't see that early.
Yeah.
But the fact that we saw those and not a couple of shots downfield actually surprises me.
Yeah, I think part of it too was that they might have had some dialed up, but then Donovan McCulley got hurt. If you're going to take a shot downfield, Donovan McCulley is the obvious guy to do it to, and he missed the last 3.5 quarters. So I do wonder whether part of that was in the game plan for him, and they didn't want to kind of break what they were trying to do. They did take the one to Anderson Kobe, where Anderson Kobe was open downfield. It should have been a touchdown. Curtis Rourke had the ball float on him just a little bit, and the defensive back was able to kind of catch up because Anderson Kobe had a step on him. So that's something that Rourke talked about after the game. He'd like to have it back. I understand why. I think he's made those throws before at Ohio, and so I do think that is another area they can improve on, and they probably will as the season goes on. Rourke has made those throws in the past, and so I think we'll probably see a few more of those against Western Illinois just to put it on film for UCLA. Just to talk about the trick plays for a second, I was interested in that. I liked that they came out and didn't stay super vanilla the entire game. I liked Kurt Sigetti's comment. He's like, I wish we had a few more in the bag, So I thought that was pretty funny. They should have had a touchdown on one of the trick plays. It worked absolutely perfectly. Tyson Lawton just biffed the throw, which he was a little bit disappointed in himself for. He's not a quarterback, clearly. But they had it wide open. It broke wide open, and that's on film now. So I think that's a pretty interesting way to kind of go about week one, is putting some stuff on film for future opponents.
Speaking of the Colts coming up, man, they've got a big game with Houston, a divisional game, which very, very important. I don't know that the Colts are ready for this game to win this game. I don't want to call them out, but the last preseason game that I watched, Anthony Richardson looked great on that first drive, but he gets picked, and man, he kind of seemed like I don't want to say he fell apart, but his mind seemed to be elsewhere after that pick.
Yeah, he's obviously still an in development type of player. I think they're still going to you would like to have gotten a lot of the growing pains out of the way last year, but unfortunately he got hurt and you weren't able to do that. So he's still basically a rookie this year, which is tough. You'd rather have your second year quarterback be ready to take a leap. I don't know if he will this year. I think there's still going to be some things to work through. He's still an electrifying athlete that is going to make some plays that just make you kind of have your jaw hanging open. But there's going to be some times where it's going to be a little bit rough. And I do think in week one, the quarterback, the quarterback matchup is pretty heavily in favor of Texas, at least, or of Houston, at least right now. CJ Stroud is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He was great last year. He is ready to take a leap into that upper echelon this year, I believe. And so, yeah, it is going to be a very difficult game for Indianapolis. The Houston, the way they've gotten better the last couple of years has been really impressive. And they were moribund as recently as 2 years ago. So we'll see whether last year was a flash in the pan or whether they have some staying power as a contender in the AFC. I think having CJ Stroud and the receivers they have around him is pretty impressive. So it's going to be a difficult test, not only for Richardson, but for the Colts defense as well.
Absolutely. What is up next for you, brother?
Yep, I will be at Notre Dame this weekend. They are playing Northern Illinois at the home opener at Notre Dame Stadium. I will not be in Bloomington on Friday, unfortunately. That's high school football.
You could have made probably all three games, except Purdue doesn't, or both games. Purdue doesn't play this week.
Right, I could have, but Friday night is high school football night for us. We are all hands on deck for our local high school football teams.
As it should be.
Absolutely. So if it was a bigger game for IU, I would consider it, but I think that they are going to have their way with Western Illinois would be my guess. I don't think that is going to be much of a challenge for them, which again should give them a chance to put some things on film, throw some deep balls, see how it works, just kind of get some of those kinks worked out as well with the penalties. So good tune-up game for when they go on the road at UCLA next week.
Absolutely. We will certainly find out. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Make sure you're giving him a follow, keeping up on all things that are around the state, including the Fort Wayne area as well. So appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me on. As always, had a good time and looking forward to being on next week.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you, brother. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week and enjoy the game in South Bend. Dylan Sinn joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. Lots more coming up. We'll take a break. Rick Bozich will join us on the backside with more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Indiana Sports Beat Radio is brought to you by the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth. In the market for a new or used vehicle? Well, nobody beats the prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
Looking for someone to cater your next corporate event, family reunion, or tailgate? To some, a garnish may be nothing more than just a decoration put last on a plate. But in Bloomington, catering starts with Garnish Catering. Serving all of Bloomington and surrounding areas, Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of WOW Food Group.
If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@indyhomepros.com. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. The Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Marie Island, Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Marie Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details.
Indiana Sports Beat Radio is brought to you by the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Looking forward maybe to talking to Kyle Neddenrip if he's able to join us today from the Indy Star. Otherwise, we have got plenty of games coming up this weekend. Week 2 with the Big Ten schedule starts on a Friday as Western Illinois comes to Indiana. Duke will visit Northwestern. And on Saturday, number 3, Texas takes on number 10, Michigan. Rhode Island, Little Rhodey, is at Minnesota as they're trying to bounce back with a win. Bowling Green will travel to Penn State. Akron is at Rutgers. Iowa State is at number 21 Iowa for the Cy-Hawk Trophy. The Sparty goes down to Maryland, which that's going to be a good game. Eastern Michigan at Washington. South Dakota at Wisconsin. Watch out for South Dakota. Number 19 Kansas at Illinois. That is going to be a good game. Colorado goes to Nebraska. Look out for Dion. Western Michigan at number 2, Ohio State. Boise State travels to number 7, Oregon. And Utah State will go to USC and play in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum against the Trojans, the Fighting Trojans of USC, who came off of a big-time win for them. So looking forward to that. And this week's high school games as well in and around the state. If you haven't it stinks. Indiana will be playing on Friday. I'm wondering now, we talked about the crowd last week. This week's game is a couple of things. Number one, it's on a Friday, a high school night. So it's probably going to have some effect there because a lot of the fans have kids that play. Not all of them, obviously. The students are not involved in that regard. It's a night game. I'm going to be interested to see what the students do at IU this week.
Do they just bolt again at halftime? Just curious, and we'll see, because they've got no place that they have to go. They'll have plenty of time. It'll be nice. The weather should be absolutely outstanding for it's on a Friday. We'll have to get past that for the moment, but it'll be a very, very good football weather. The fact that it's on Friday will affect the tailgating some for people that have to travel. I guess we'll see how that goes, but doesn't matter to the product on the field, which is what Coach Kurt Cignetti is most concerned with. And as they try to keep moving forward, Ross wants a T for Texas. He thinks that Texas beats Michigan on Saturday. Well, I absolutely think Texas will beat Michigan on Saturday. I am not sold on Michigan at all. Neither are a lot of other people. That's why they dropped a spot in the AP top 25. We'll see. But right now, I'm just not sold on Michigan. But I've said that before the season. They lost a ton. They lost a ton of production of their offense. They lost a ton off of their defensive front line. They lost a ton of coaches, including the head guy. And so that's going to affect them. I'm definitely, if I were betting that game, I'm taking Texas. No, without question. I just don't see Michigan as being, especially after week one of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten. And I've moved USC up to my number 2 team in the Big Ten personally, behind Ohio State, USC. And I think I'm going to go with Penn State at number 3, then Oregon, then Michigan for the top 5. But the fun thing is, I think the Big Ten is going to be, and I've said this before, a fun group in between. You've got that upper echelon of teams, and it looks like that Ohio State is separate from everybody else, but I think that USC is a lot closer than people think. So I'm going to put them in that top 2 echelon. Penn State is right there as of this moment. Then there's a separation, and that separation includes Oregon and Michigan. And I'm not saying that there may be another team that's better than that, than one of those that can jump up in there. Not sure who that is. Nebraska's got a true freshman quarterback, but they didn't seem to have a lot of problems over the weekend. Maryland looked very good, especially for a team that had to come back and replace Tagovailoa. So that right now, that looks to me personally to be the toughest game in Indiana's first 6, which that's not how the coaches will be looking at it. They're looking at one thing, and that's Western Illinois on September 7th, this Friday night. That's how they view it. So that's how that goes. But we shall see. That's why they play the games, people. That's why they play the games. Anybody are you affected by this weekend's Friday night game and the fact that you can't go because you have a high school obligation for one reason or another? Curious on how that's going to affect things. And then to hear Purdue has not 1 but 2 Friday night games. Why would you do that to anybody? That's not Purdue doing that, by the way. That is the league or whatever, whoever sets that up. I don't like it. I definitely don't like the fact that they do it twice. That's just ridiculous. Michael says, call him crazy, but he thinks that Texas scores late to beat Michigan. I don't think that they'll need to score late, personally. I mean, that sure could happen, so I'm not going to say at all that that's crazy, but I definitely think that Michigan loses that game. But what do I know? Michael says he can't go because of high school football, but he wasn't anyway. Is that what you're saying? So thanks for that, Michael. Friday night games upsets his viewing on Patrol Live from Beach Grove. Oh man, is that stuff back? That's funny. That is funny. Mention the Fever securing a playoff spot. Congratulations to them as they will look to move forward. And that's starting out 1-8, and now they're 17-16. So do the math. Pretty good run that they've had, and pretty good turnaround once they got going. And I think that's why you've got to give, especially new players. Man, their top 2 players have been drafted in the last 2 seasons. So you always got to just chill and wait for things to come out and let them settle down. Michael says he wants to go Friday, but can't because of high school football. There you go. Now I get it. Gritty says his too. So there's that. We also heard from Curtis Rourke and defensive lineman Marcus Burris in regards to this past weekend's win and the upcoming game this week. Let's hear what Curtis Rourke has to say.
Mike, and then go to Zach O. Yeah, Curtis, when you watched the film and kind of went through it with, what jumped out at you? Maybe something that you didn't notice on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, it was a good learning tape to watch. I think that for our first game, it wasn't too bad as an offense, but we're really looking and trying to chase those, those middle free drives. They went down and scored every time, and that had really good on all cylinders kind of thing. We're really working well. But yeah, it was a good learning tape and a lot to work on for this week.
Zach Osman on your left, and then Jeff.
I guess just like bigger picture, an experienced quarterback like you, what are the things that you want to sort of accomplish in early season games? Just whether it's stuff you want to just kind of get comfortable with, or maybe just get back into the rhythm. Like, just are there things that you kind of look at and say, I want to tick these boxes to know that I've kind of got the right rhythm that I need once we hit conference play, once we get into the meat of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit it. You want to get into a good rhythm. First game is always like getting that game speed back. You can prepare as much as you want in the off season and do as much live reps as you can, but until you hit the game, and you get that first hit, then you can be like, all right, we're going now, kind of thing. And so, getting that rhythm down, timing down, game timing and all that. And so, it's good to have, a couple games before conference play in order to get that out of the way. But the sooner the better, and that's what we're striving for this week.
We have Jeff in front on your right, and then Daniel.
Cross's catch, more impressive from your vision as quarterback when you throw that ball, more impressive later when you go back and watch that on film.
I think it was impressive in all angles. When I threw it, I was just hoping that nothing bad would happen, and he kind of just saved me there a little bit. He's a heck of a player, and so we're glad that we have him on the team. And watching it again in film was like, wow, he's a special player. So.
Was there anything surprising about that, or is he the kind of guy who you're like, that's just kind of what he can do?
Yeah, I mean, he's got great hands. One of the best hands that I've been around. Obviously, I played with him at Ohio in his first 2 years, and he's one of the most secure hands that that I've met and that I played with.
There you go. That is quarterback Curtis Rourke for Indiana, talking about some of the play from last week's game. Defensive lineman Marcus Burris also met with the media yesterday. Let's hear what his thoughts were.
Mike's is. Marcus, what's the competition been like in the room? Obviously, guys rotate a lot on Saturday. How much does that field, guys? And what's that kind of done for the room for you guys?
It's been great, actually. You got me, Clark, CJ, and we got some younger guys coming in like Mario Landino and Tuck coming over from JMU as well. It's been a really, really good for all of us. We've done nothing but push each other since summer workouts, pushing sleds. We've been right there by each other, pushing each other, making each other better.
Zach and Robbie, I guess what's it like working with Coach Kuntz? He seems like an intense guy, but also somebody that really tries to take an intense interest in his players. Just what's his coaching style, I guess?
It's been really effective. I think everyone in the room can vouch for me. We've been able to play a lot faster, a lot more physical, and like you said, he's a lot more intense than a lot of people, D-line coaches that you see today. So it's been really effective, really fun. I'm actually glad I got a chance to stay here and play for somebody like Coach Kuntz.
That was defensive lineman Marcus Burris talking about playing for Coach Pat Kuntz and how the intensity level is picked up as well. So that's also hearing from both of those guys great. And as they'll take on Western Illinois this week, and looking forward to that and see what Indiana can clean up. And that's the biggest thing that they have to do, mostly on offense, getting rid of those penalties. 8 penalties out of the 9 were against the offense. So, and it was weird that they weren't there at the beginning. Well, I guess they kind of were, because it was, I think early on they had maybe three flags in the first quarter to 2 for FIU, and FIU was able to not really get penalized. I'm wondering if, because Indiana's defense was kind of dominant, so there's not a lot of penalties to probably cause. Yeah, Indiana's just got to clean that stuff up, which, again, that's the kind of stuff that you do clean up early on. That's when you don't have preseason games to get that stuff cleaned up. You got to do it now, and we'll see. This will be a good barometer this week to see where the improvement is, because they're going to have to do the same thing. I expect them to throw the ball a little bit more this week to start seeing where they are as far as being able to pass block, pass protect. Probably going to see a few more shots downfield as they have to get ready. And more importantly, they've got to get in sync. Quarterback, receivers, the offense, all that, just continue to work to get in sync, because that's what this time of the season is for, and you've got to quickly do that. So there is that. Ross says Bowling Green and Connor Bazelak go to Penn State. Would be funny to see him take it to Tom Allen's D. Yeah, well, good luck with that. Penn State's pretty tough, but very interesting for those two to be going up against each other. So that is a ironic, a thing of irony, as they say, Ross, but thank you. Dave didn't get to listen to us yesterday as much, but did anyone talk about Coach Signetti at halftime when he was coming off at the field? He loved it. Yeah, I'm sure I mentioned that. I mentioned that during our post-game show, that you could tell that he was up. They showed him on TV all the time. He would be up when he was up 21-7 and they had an offensive penalty. You just see he was just, it drives him nuts, but that's what it's supposed to do. He's striving for the unattainable, which is perfection. You know, perfection is virtually unattainable, but you have to strive for that. You have to strive to get as close to that as you can, because the bar has to always be highest. And if not, you set the bar low, reach the bar, big deal. You've got to set the bar almost out of reach to challenge yourself. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Rick Bozich should be joining us next. Back with you right after this. Indiana Sports Beat Radio is brought to you by the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth. Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off your first order.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Looking for someone to cater your next corporate event, family reunion, or tailgate? To some, a garnish may be nothing more than just a decoration put last on a plate. But in Bloomington, catering starts with Garnish Catering. Serving all of Bloomington and surrounding areas, Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of WOW Food Group.
If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at indyhomepros.com. In the market for a new or used vehicle? Well, nobody beats the prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Hard Truth Distilling Company and Andy Moore Honda Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Fresh Fork in Bloomington.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Studios here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and our good friend Rick Bozich joining us as well from WDRB.com. Richard, how are you doing, sir? I believe we've got Rick. Somehow his microphone is not working, but we'll get him to jump out and jump back in, and that's probably, we'll take care of that easily. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com joining us here in just a second, but plenty to look forward to talking to Rick as the area teams go out and have a weekend. Most did exactly what they were supposed to do, and we'll talk to Rick when he comes out. Rick, go ahead and jump out and jump back in if you don't mind, and that'll probably take care of that. But looking forward to talking to Rick. He's got an article out now and with his top picks. Rick, I think I hear you.
Thank you.
There
I'm
you
glad.
go.
What was I doing? Daydreaming?
I don't know. Who knows? How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I was just actually scanning the NFL wire to see who's doing what and where.
Yeah? What's the latest?
I was just actually counting up the number of local players that were in the NFL, and one of Louisville's top running backs from last year looks like he just reached an injury settlement with the Houston Texans, so he won't be able to play.
That's not good, but at least he got a settlement. Speaking of the NFL, the Colts opening up the NFL season with a divisional game, a tough divisional game, in which I'm not sure they're ready for yet to win. They, I think they've lost 10 straight openers. I was told yesterday, I was on with Dan Darkich, and he said that, and I'm like, what? That's almost mind-boggling.
Yeah, that's not a good way to get to the postseason, putting yourself in a hole right off the bat. Who do they play?
Houston.
Okay, Houston's good. CJ Stroud's good.
Yes, he's had a good year, and it's there's a lot of pressure on the old GM, Mr.
Ballard. I've seen his name pop up everywhere. Yeah.
Yes, and it's not usually good right now, but that takes on this weekend as well. But the college season officially underway with week 1 getting in the books. Most teams did what they were expected to do, Rick. It was pretty much chalk, whether you're talking about Purdue, Indiana, Notre Dame. Well, Notre Dame that was a bigger win for them, although I'm not sure how good of a win it really was. I don't know how good Texas A&M truly is right now. We'll have to find that out later. Fortunately for the Irish, they don't really have a tough game. Their toughest game comes now at the end of the season against the Trojans of USC. Louisville with a gigantic win under Jeff Brom in his second year as well. So, and that, speaking of which, the ACC, Florida State, this projected top 10 team, they're gone. That's a quick drop from the top 10 to out.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a free fall for them really since the end of last season when Jordan Travis got hurt.
Yes.
They somehow were able to hold on and beat Louisville in the ACC championship game, but they got routed by Georgia in the bowl game. And the most interesting thing I've read about Florida State was that they're a team that became heavily dependent upon the portal. And, it can work, but doesn't always work because sometimes you don't get the right guys and they don't have the right guys. And they went with the quarterback who had failed at Clemson, was okay at Oregon State, and he's not a good passer. He missed a lot of wide open receivers in that game. So Florida State still has a number of tough games to play. Do they play Notre Dame? I think they do later in the year. Yeah,
they do. But that's how ironic now that's not viewed as this big time game at the moment. Right. Of course, that can change if Florida State starts winning and starts winning dominantly. That'll change.
Yeah, I would expect that Florida State will take some time to regroup and maybe decide if they need to go a different direction at quarterback and see what happens. As for here, I mean, you're right. Louisville did win easily. The game was over after the first drive. They went right down the field and scored. Austin Peay was outmanned at pretty much every position. But
what was the crowd like in the second half? Just out of curiosity.
Not good. Not good. And Brown didn't say anything. Brown didn't say anything. But I'm sure he wasn't happy about it. I mean, I'd say at the end of the game, and I'll be conservative, I'll say at the very end of the game, there might have been 6,000 or 7,000 people in the stands. Noon game, really hot, Labor Day weekend. People had other things to do. No intrigue. So it goes on other places other than Indiana. It's just in Indiana, the problem is it's happened for so long. And the second thing is that it's a big drop off at halftime. Students leave, right? They go somewhere else at halftime, whether it's drunk or do whatever they're doing. And I'm not sure if Kurt Signetti wasn't warned about this ahead of time, but he should have been, because it's not like anybody who's been to IU football games before was shocked that it happened, right?
Yeah, I think that while you'd want to say it shouldn't be the case, but at the end of the day, if Indiana goes to UCLA and wins that game, I think that is going to make an unbelievable difference for the Hoosiers. I hope that'll make a difference in the crowd, because, well, and then on top of that, while you have a non-con game coming back from that, going forward after that, it's nothing but games that are going to be difficult. So one would hope that people stick around and watch, because I fully expect these to be good games, if not big wins. I'm not expecting Indiana to get routed by anybody at home this year.
No, I wouldn't think so. I agree. I mean, if they can beat Western Illinois the way they're supposed to beat them, and then beat UCLA on the road, and UCLA looked beatable against Hawaii, should have a nicer crowd and a more stable crowd for Charlotte. And then if you get to 4-0, you're playing Maryland then for a conference game at home. That's when it really should be, almost full and people stay engaged in the game. But, I've read a bunch of the stuff that people have written, and people do need to get there and stay, and that's what every coach wants. But I think about the situation here at Louisville. I mean, I remember Charlie Strong used to get mad about the fans, and other U of L coaches have been mad about the fans. It happens at a lot of different places. It's just that it's more – Indiana starts with a smaller crowd than a lot of places have, and it's a much bigger, more proven tradition of people leaving at halftime. So
yeah, and I know previously you had said that there weren't going to be pass outs this year, but that's not the case. There still are.
I thought they were going to change that. Is it next year?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a wait and see. I think that they're going to probably wait and see until they have games against Maryland, home game against Nebraska, home game against Washington, against Michigan. Well, Michigan, that we know what that'll be like. Purdue, those are games they traditionally stay those last couple, but Nebraska, Washington, Maryland, and maybe even Charlotte. There needs to be, and you'd hope to see improvement by the Charlotte game of fans sticking around, but that's another game that Indiana should win very, very easily, no matter what happens out at UCLA the week prior to that. But
that's part of the job that Signetti and the administration have now, is to change the mindset of IU football. It didn't get this way in one season. It's gotten this way over 30 or 40 seasons, and it's not going to change overnight. And so the best way to change it is to make what's happening so compelling that people don't want to leave.
Yeah.
And, it's just going to take time.
Absolutely. And while that has started, there are other things that have started. The Big 10, now the Big 18, whatever you want to call it.
17-1, man.
17-1. And the only loss was at home by Minnesota they had that game won, and that would have been a good win for them over that ACC North Carolina team.
Yeah, well, they missed a couple field goals, including one late in the game.
Yep.
Yeah, they did have it won, but it's going to be a strong league. They won't go 17-1 again this week. This is Michigan at home playing Texas. That's going to be a tough one.
I see Texas winning that game.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan struggled the opening week really to beat. Was it Fresno State?
Yes.
Kalen
DeBoer's old squad.
Oregon didn't look great against Idaho. So
but USC sure made their case for being an upper echelon Big Ten team right now. That was a huge win over LSU on a neutral site in Las Vegas, but that was a big win.
Yeah, I saw that kid Miller Moss play in the Holiday Bowl, and he threw 6 touchdown passes against Louisville in his first start, and a lot of people kind of discounted it, saying, maybe Louisville wasn't into the game or whatever, but he showed he's a legit quarterback. And that game last year, I'm sure, gave him a bunch of confidence that he could do it this year. And USC, I think the schedule's pretty favorable too, and they'll be on the fringe of the contender list in the Big Ten,
without question. Without question. Were there any big surprises other than Florida State over this weekend for you in college football?
I'd say the biggest surprise was Virginia Tech losing at Vanderbilt. Virginia Tech was getting some small amount of love as a contender in the ACC. If you can't win at Vanderbilt, that's probably not the case. And the other one was another ACC team, Clemson, used to be in the top line of heavyweight contenders. And they played Georgia, and it was close for a half, but they got blown out in the second half. And Dabo Swinney immediately fell under the criticism of he won't take guys out of the portal, and you can't do that anymore. And Clemson might come back and win the ACC and have a great year, but they looked definitely a notch below Georgia in that game. So those would be, and Notre Dame winning at Texas A&M. I picked Texas A&M to win that game because Notre Dame's offensive line was so inexperienced, but I was impressed by the way they played.
Well, I was the same. I picked Texas A&M to win that game as well. Was wrong. Notre Dame able to get that done, and like I said, now they've got, I won't say smooth sailing, but pretty calmer seas than most teams will have going forth. Brian says he wouldn't waste too much time about Indiana. If Sig wins, he won't be here long. You won't want to miss it. I don't know about that. I can't dispute it because the obvious is the obvious, but it's still going to take 2 or 3 seasons, I think, to put this in a situation like Lance Leipold has done at Kansas. They're in their 3rd season, I believe, or so right there. They're building a brand new stadium at Kansas. They're doing a Northwestern, man. They're playing at, I think, a soccer field this year or someplace, a different stadium. But they're building an entire new stadium. That's a new program.
That's commitment.
That's culture. That's say, hey, we got it going. But I think that they do. They're in a great league in the Big 12, a great football league. It's a great league, period. But he's shown that they're they're doing it. They didn't just go out and win one game. He has done a hell of a job.
Yeah. Again, it's not going to change in one or two games. It's got to change over time. And if, as you said, I wholeheartedly agree, if they beat UCLA, that should create a bigger crowd, a more invested crowd for the Charlotte game. And if they win that game and they're 4-0 playing Maryland at home, that will give Indiana fans every reason to be there on September the 28th to see what they can do against a team that's beaten them at least 2 or 3 in a row. They've struggled against Maryland in recent years, and then you got a chance to be 5-0, and that would lead into what, Northwestern? I think that's what it is. So that's winning is the shortest way to doing it. 2, being competitive and exciting to watch will be the second way to do it. And the third is, and you were there, I wasn't, how are the amenities at the stadium? Could you tell an improvement? Did people seem to be more pleased by their game day experience?
That's a great question that I have not truly got to been able to find out. I've seen the places, and I think that they would have to, just on how it's set up. But that's a great question. And for those of you that were at the game, did you visit the concession stands? What was that like, that experience with all the newness there? I'll have to dig a little more into that. But from a visual standpoint, and the fact that it wasn't like it was a sold out stadium, so that should have made things a lot easier as well. Man, in the second half, you probably should have been able to walk right up to any concession stand and get whatever the hell you wanted. Or they've got those grab and go places now, so you just walk in and zip.
Did half the crowd leave? Well, how bad was it? I didn't.
Oh, it was at least. But there was also something going on with some area bands playing, and I'm sure there were parents there. The bands were part of that. So, it is what it is. That's something that I also don't think Cignetti is going to focus on going forth. He said he's already made a statement about that. He's going to focus on what his job is, and that is to win football games. And if you build it, they will come. If they don't, there's not much else you can do. Indiana seems to be doing things that they should have been doing a long time ago, granted, but they seem to be doing those things now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's definitely been a change in the mindset of the administration. And example one was coming up with the money to buy out Tom Allen. You're not going to do that unless you're committed to making a change. They brought Cignetti in, and I think he's had more money to spend on his assistant coaching staff and bringing in all the people he needs. And they changed the turf at the Mellencamp place, and they got other things in mind, but they got to keep after it, keep doing it. And because they were asleep for so many years, that's why they have such a big hill to climb. It's not going to change in a year. It's not going to change in 2 or 3 years. It's going to change over, 5 or 10 years.
Absolutely. Rick Bozich with us from WDRB.com. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Rick, and we'll be back with that and more right after this. Indiana Sports Beat Radio is brought to you by the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth. In the market for a new or used vehicle? Well, nobody beats the prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com.
Looking for someone to cater your next corporate event, family reunion, or tailgate? To some, a garnish may be nothing more than just a decoration put last on a plate. But in Bloomington, catering starts with Garnish Catering. Serving all of Bloomington and surrounding areas, Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of WOW Food Group.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details.
Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off your first order. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Hard Truth Distilling Company and Andy Moore Honda Bloomington.
Segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Studios on this Wednesday, joined by the great Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you're giving Rick a follow, keeping up with all things going on in the sports world. Rick, this weekend, teams, Purdue with a big win. Of course, it was over Indiana State. They did what they were supposed to do, but this is a team picked to finish last in the Big Ten. I'm sure they're carrying a chip on their shoulder, as I would be. So they go out and they do what they're supposed to do, and they looked good doing it. Indiana, I'd give them a B, probably a B overall. Maybe a B plus if you add everything in, because the defense was very dominant, but the offense definitely just needs to clean their penalties up. If it wasn't for that, I think that they probably would have put a lot more points on the board. They really started dinging themselves with just dumb self-inflicted penalties, which is not a mark, which is an opposite mark of a Curt Cignetti team. He has many times talked about, being at JMU or the other stops being one of the least penalized teams in the country. And that wasn't the case this past week, but first week. So I'm not, that's nothing to harp on, other than it's something that they have to clean up and clean up fast, with 8 out of their 9 penalties, which that's too many to start with. But being on the offense, only 3 penalties on FIU in the entire game.
Yeah, I watched the game after I got back from the Louisville game. I recorded and watched it, and first, quarter and a half was very impressive, and then you're right, they kind of lost focus and concentration or whatever, and had penalties, had some drops, had some bad blocking misfires. So they have a lot to work on. Fortunately, the team they play this week's the worst team on the schedule for sure. Western Illinois, didn't they get blown out in the first game by somebody?
Oh yeah, they're not good. They're not good. They suck.
Yeah, they're one of the worst teams. And this is the week they're supposed to be playing Louisville. And Indiana's playing Western Illinois, and Louisville's playing Jacksonville State instead. And I understand why Indiana made the change, and I agree with them making the change, because when they made the change, Tom Allen was still the coach, and I think they were trying to make sure he had a guaranteed win so they could help him, if he could survive last year, stay around and move forward. Well, that didn't happen. So you stick with this game and you win it. And to me, the number one thing that Indiana needs to focus on, I know that Cignetti hates it, is 6 wins. Get to 6 wins and go to a bowl game. That might not appeal to the coaching staff. That might not appeal to the players, but to some of the IU fan base and some of the outside skeptics in the media world, you just put yourself in a different category when you go to a bowl game. And if you go to the bowl game and actually win the bowl game, then you got people saying, oh, that long bowl losing streak is over, and you go into next season on a high. So that's what I think. That's like the bottom line expectation for this team. That's the minimum they have to achieve, I think, to feel like it's a success. Anything beyond that is just bonus points. That's the way I look at it.
I agree. Quickly, Chris pointing out that he talked to a friend of his who went to the game, and he lives in Florida, couldn't make it, but the concessions were tasty, fast, and very efficient. So, buddy, that's not something you hear every day about concession stands. So thank you, Chris. We appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I want to say is this, although I say I understand why people don't come and why they don't stay. If you're leaving because it's hot, that's ridiculous. Every other place in the country is hot. A lot of them are hotter. Huh?
How'd you like to be a football player playing in that stuff?
A lot of places are hotter, more crowded, longer waits in the concession stand, longer waits to use the restroom. When your team wins, nobody complains about the heat. It's when your team isn't winning consistently. That's when people say it's too hot or too cold.
Absolutely. And I agree with what you said. Indiana, not playing Louisville this week. I think it's still better off for Kurt Cignetti, still incorporating everything that they're moving into, especially with having, game number 3 against a conference opponent and on the road in Los Angeles. So yeah, it is much better for Indiana that this game is not against Louisville. Louisville is probably, no doubt, they're further ahead. They're at Jeff Brom's second season of having everything instituted, all their schemes and all of that. So very, very good move for Indiana, but they've got to use this and use it for what they're supposed to do. And they need to go out and, personally, I think they need to throttle Western Illinois, not for the sake of doing it, but for the sake of showing, okay, we've cleaned up these offensive miscues and we have the strength to do this.
They need to do what Louisville did to Austin Peay. I go back and look at the Louisville Austin Peay things that impressed me is got so far ahead in the first half that a lot of starters didn't play in the second half, starting with the quarterback, who is very good, Tyler Shuck. The second thing they did was, I don't have the exact, it's either 58 or 62, one or the other. However many Austin Peay ran, only 4 of them were on the Louisville side of the field. So the defense kept the other team totally contained. You never felt like they had a chance of scoring. And you had multiple guys who weren't really that high in the depth chart, led by 2 freshman running backs, get playing time and show that they had ability. Those are the kind of things you want to get out of this game. You want to be dominant. You want to get out of it without any injuries, and you want to make sure that a lot of guys get to play.
Absolutely. Defense seems to be, I don't want to say ahead of the offense, but they committed 1 penalty. They were very effective. They hold FIU to 185 total yards, 75 of which came on their scoring drive. So they were, especially in the second half, that's usually when you will see a letdown or whatever. Did not see that. Didn't happen. So Indiana's defense seems to be coming out and hitting, I don't want to say on all cylinders just yet, but by the time they get a couple of weeks in, Indiana should be looking good. Aiden Fisher, kind of the lead point there at linebacker, certainly made his presence known, a transfer, no less, making his presence known for Indiana's defense, and Brian Haynes. So they look pretty good on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. Fisher was definitely very active, very disruptive, always around the ball. I agree with Brian's comment that best tackling seen at IU in a long time. I thought they were aggressive. They were assertive. They were a lot of energy. The defensive line had a little bit more of a push. They got 1 interception by Amari Farrell, I saw. So we'll see. Win this game this week, and then UCLA will tell. I don't think UCLA even plays this week, do they?
No, they're on a bye.
Yeah. So That's going to be a big game. I mean, UCLA, that didn't they have to come back in the fourth quarter and beat Hawaii?
Yeah, they only win by a field goal.
Right. So that's an opportunity, man. That's an opportunity. I would think Indiana would keep portions of the playbook in the bag this week and not show anything to UCLA as best they can. They shouldn't have to they should be able to beat Western Illinois with pretty basic football. And then the season really starts next week. Because after that, well, Charlotte's not very good either. But after that, then you get into the Big Ten, and there are no easy games.
No, and like I've talked about the path to 6-0, but 5-1 could be very realistic because Maryland came out looking very good in their opening game. So that's going to be probably the toughest game that Indiana will have, even though that they're playing UCLA on the road. Of course, that could change. We'll see. But as of right now, Maryland looked very good in their opening game, so they're only going to get better as well. But if they're 5-1, I think Indiana fans are going to be ecstatic after the first 6 games, because you have 6 games remaining, 4 of which are at home, just to get to bowl eligibility. And that's something Indiana has not seen in a while.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I would like to see Rourke play a little bit better. I thought his play was okay.
Pedestrian. Very pedestrian. Very pedestrian.
I didn't see anything there like that wowed me. I didn't. And I was expecting more from the receivers too. There was a lot of hype before the season that the receiving room was the best one in the Big Ten, and they had all these dudes, and I didn't really see much evidence of that. I know McCulley got hurt, but I'd like to see more from the passing game.
Yeah, I agree. They didn't. They were great on the little short hits, short passing. The bigger passes, not quite in sync yet, but that's what these games are for. But they need to quickly get there, and they need to get there this week, and show that that's where they are. And the adage is teams make the most improvement between weeks 1 and 2. I don't know how true that really is. You would think that you continue to improve as you go, but there will certainly be the opportunity this week for all the teams. Purdue off this week as they prepare for Notre Dame to come visiting. Their season, their easy part of their season is over. 1 game in and it's done, because now they've got Notre Dame. Then they travel to Oregon State. That'll be tough. Louisville will get into the ACC season soon, but of course, who do they have coming up this week?
Louisville plays Jacksonville State, which lost to Coastal Carolina 55-27 in its opener, so it shouldn't be a big challenge. Coached by Rich Rodriguez.
They used to have a coach by someone, I can't remember what his name is.
Jacksonville State?
Yeah.
It's Rich Rodriguez.
No, I meant their former coach.
Oh, I don't know.
Was it Dion?
No, that was Jackson State.
He's a Jackson State.
This is Jacksonville State in Alabama. Rich Rod supposedly coaches on the sidelines wearing short pants. That's what I've heard.
Oh my gosh. That's why. I guess because he can, maybe.
Maybe he's a player. I don't know.
Indiana's next game is on Friday night. That sucks. I hate that. We say that every time, but it is what it is. That's not. Purdue has 2 Friday night games this year.
Big Ten after dark, baby. It's a thing.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I wish they would stop. I mean,
what I don't like is teams. I mean, having an off week the second week of the season, to me, that's kind of stupid.
It is. I don't get that either. I've said that. I go, that's the dumbest thing in the world, having a bye week as soon as you get into the season. You're generally, I don't want to say you're not going to have you're not going to be that dinged up, or you shouldn't be that dinged up. So it doesn't really help a whole lot, unless UCLA is a program that probably does benefit, because they need all the practice they can get. That probably sounds worse than it should. I don't intend it, but they have a new coach, a coach that hasn't been a coach, hasn't been a coordinator. So they could probably use that, and they're probably benefited. But other than that, I just don't agree with having a bye week so soon.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but after 1 game seems really dumb. You're not going to have that many guys injured that early on. And I guess they have to space it out, and different teams have different bye weeks every week to make the 12-game season, last 13 or 14 weeks. But we'll see. Louisville's off next week, so their off week comes pretty early too. The game I'm actually going to Saturday is Kentucky. They actually have a conference game against South Carolina, and then after they play South Carolina, they've got Georgia, so it gets real tough real quick for Kentucky.
Yeah, what is Vanderbilt going to be a little surprise in the SEC this year?
I don't know about how much of a surprise they'll be in the SEC, but I've liked their coach, Clark Lee, and they've gotten incrementally better over his 2 or 3 seasons there. And for them to win a home game against Virginia Tech, it wasn't a fluke. They led most of the game, lost the lead in the fourth quarter. It came back and tied it with 2 minutes to go and beat them in overtime. So Vandy's trying. They just got so many obstacles to overcome playing in that league, playing in that city where they're, probably the third or it's obviously a Titans, Houston, Tennessee Titans town. Then it's a Nashville Predators town. Then it is a Tennessee Volunteers town. And, they have a hard time generating support in that town, but they got their win. Fever president and CEO stepping down. Is that a big deal?
Ross telling us that information. Well, if it's true, it certainly is. And Allison Barber is stepping down from her role as team president at the end of the season. The Fever said in a release. Barber, who has held the position since 2019, will help the development of the Marvella project, which the team describes as a new effort to empower girls and women in Indiana through sports. Okay. Wild. That's kind of wild coming on the heels of the fact that the Fever just secured their first playoff spot since 2019. So I guess
future couldn't be brighter. Right? They're the talk of the league.
But the bigger thing is, well, this has been a while back, so that's old news there. So wild. But congratulations to them. But man, I think that I'm looking forward to this week as well, getting back to it. I know you are. Cannot thank you enough as always. Predictions, of course, Indiana's going to win easily this week. I'll go ahead and say that one until we start getting into the games. Louisville, who does Louisville play?
Jacksonville State. They're favored by, I think, 26 or something.
That's
24, 25.
After what they did last week, my God, they should have a 40-point spread on that game.
Well, get to DraftKings and hammer
it. There you go. I'm not smart enough. I always lose if I bet. Purdue off this week. Notre Dame. I forget who the Irish play this week.
I think it's Northern Illinois at home.
Now, how do they get that game scheduled? Man, they already have a plush schedule, but oh well. Going to be something. Man, looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great season, though. It's going to be wild, and we'll see teams moving up and down. USC, I think, is the number 2 team in the Big Ten right now, Rick. They, after what I saw this past weekend, they jump over Oregon to me, and Oregon kind of, they looked all right. But that's going to be a very movable thing this entire season.
Yeah, I'd say it's Ohio State 1. I'm not ready to totally write off Oregon yet, but Michigan is a notch down. USC would probably be ahead of them too.
Absolutely.
Wisconsin kind of stuff. Iowa might be a little bit of a sleeper. They actually have some offense now.
I was going to say, what a shocker. Iowa hasn't put up 40 points since the Truman
administration. I know the team we're forgetting. It's probably the second best team in the Big Ten, Penn State. That was a very impressive win at West Virginia.
And Tom Allen running their defense now, and that was a tough win. You go into a very difficult place to play in Morgantown. They like to burn couches, baby, but they didn't get to do that this weekend. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Can't thank you enough as always, brother.
12-game losing streak. Keep it rolling.
Yes, go White Sox. Keep it up, brother. We love you.
All right. 31-109, man. It's history.
Oh, we should celebrate. We'll celebrate.
Oh, I'm going to celebrate when the season ends.
I bet you. A lot of people are. Thank you, sir. Rick Bozich joining us here on Indiana U as well. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, as always, and always grateful to have Rick along. He is about as fun as you can get. But mostly, he's more importantly, very knowledgeable He has been around, and he has worked for some of the big time operations. As you see the schedule coming up for this week, football games. Don't forget, we'll have the Hard Truth post-game show after the game this week. It's going to be a late one, so you'll have to stay up and stay in for that. But we've got lots more coming up tomorrow. Cannot wait, and we'll get back to it then. Thanks to Dylan Sinn, Kyle we couldn't get with him today, but Rick Bozich. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you. That'll wrap it up for today's Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back tomorrow to do it again. Until then, from the Hard Truth Studios, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio. Indiana Sports Beat Radio is brought to you by the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.